I'd like to launch in a little bit. We'll be hopefully looking at some slides, which I've got here without being too much death by PowerPoint. We're also going to go live onto LinkedIn, which I think is the best place and the best way to look at things here. So we'll be mixing those two things up. Just as a final sort of check for me, can I have a sort of just a thumbs up? Can you see the first slide, the opening slide? Yeah. And if I went across here, can you now see LinkedIn? Yeah, thank you so much. Again, I once did this and I got 15 minutes in and then I got a little message in the chat saying, are we supposed to be able to see anything? So I like to check nowadays, but there we go. Okay. Um, First thing, a couple of obvious statements, but ones I think that still need to be made. LinkedIn's changed. LinkedIn continues to change. Some of you may even remember these things, but LinkedIn, when we go back to the sort of start point 22 years ago, so LinkedIn's nearly 22 years old, it was really just a Rolodex, an address book. It was you with your address book in this environment online. And that was about it. It sort of developed a little bit into also a CV. So when we looked at people's profiles, it was very much a sort of replica in many respects to what they were giving out as a CV or a resume to people that they wanted to sort of work with. Um, it's moved on. If I had an analogy that I'd prefer to use for LinkedIn today, it's probably going to be a Swiss Army knife, something like that. In other words, there's a tool that we can use in lots and lots of different ways. In the current, I suppose, situation you're in and what we're looking at today, we are using this tool from a perspective of looking for a new role, trying to put ourselves in front of and get ourselves known by the people that are going to be of interest to us. In doing so, of course, and I hope you'll sort of get this as we go through, you are also presenting yourself from a sort of a personal branding perspective, one of those words that people like to sort of put out there nowadays. In other words, whatever we are looking at and sort of making a sort of modifications to at the moment, I hope won't be just relevant for what you're going through currently, but are actually going to be really useful going forward as perhaps your use of LinkedIn will change at that point. So have a think at it, not just in a single sort of way, I guess, but also in a slightly more holistic way of actually, this is a place where I can be me and I can put myself out there. Sounds a little bit sort of utopian, but it's actually quite good in terms of how we approach it. Those of you who've spent a bit of time on LinkedIn will also know that, particularly over the last 5 years or so, LinkedIn itself has changed a lot in terms of how people are sharing and what they are doing with it. That is to say that actually, if we look at differing things in there and how people are using it, then we are actually making things, I suppose, a lot more personal than they used to be. Go back 5 years pre-COVID, and actually it was sort of really, really business focused. The posting that you see on the home page would be business focused. Nowadays, you can't move for pictures of cats and dogs and working from home and all sorts of stuff on there. So LinkedIn itself and how people use it has also modified. So we need to try and be consistent with how we want to use it. And in our current situation, as I said, if you are looking for a role, then clearly how people do that has also changed massively. And I'd like to think that LinkedIn holds its place as one of those areas that is going to provide value and return for what you want to try and do. So lots of different things here that I hope we'll be able to use, and I hope that we'll be able to tap into as well. One thing that was really sort of, I suppose, big for me is did some research and how people said they were using it anyway. And 80%, 87% actually of recruiters said that they used LinkedIn to vet or to check or to find potential candidates. And if that isn't good enough reason to go on and actually make sure that we are findable to them, then I don't know what is. So all of these things sort of come together in, right, okay, great. We know it's important. How do we use it? Well, I actually want to sort of start by taking you back to basics. And again, any of you who've sort of heard me speak on this before will know that I come back to this idea of LinkedIn being a big room. So above all, what I really, really would like you to do is to be you and actually make every interaction that you do on LinkedIn as personal as possible. And this will come into play, for example, when I talk about, we're going to look briefly at applying for jobs on LinkedIn in a sort of, again, sort of quite high level way. Um, just simply sending someone your CV and hoping, for me, is not personal. They don't know you. It's a bit of paper. What I desperately would like them to do, however, is to realize, well, actually, this is someone of interest and that there is a person behind the lines of text that they've got on there. Equally, if you walk into that big room, what are we going to do? How are we going to make ourselves known to the people in there? Because there's loads of people in there. But it is a brilliant place to go and engage and to leverage your relationships, and more's the point, to start and foster new ones. So we want to try and make sure that all of these different things can be at your disposal, if you like, and that we can tap into each of those. And as I put at the bottom, there's lots of different ways that we can do that. There is no single route that you would take to work that room. I'd like to introduce 2 or 3 ways that you might care to apply, if you like. And finally, in terms of who's in there, well, to be honest, all the sorts of people you might have an interest in. And that could be people who are actually going to sign on the dotted line, or people who could introduce you, or external recruiters, HR consultants, job seek specialists, whatever. They are all in there, along with, of course, loads and loads of other people, perhaps in the same situations we all are. So we need to try and make sure that we are in front of the right ones, we are using, and that people who we know are aware of our situation, and ideally, that we get ourselves ahead of the competition, let's be honest. Okay, so there's our goal. We want to try and do that in terms of, first of all, making sure that you present yourself in the best possible way. When you walk into that big room, what do you look like? Are you giving off the right image? When we're in there, we want to make sure that we are leveraging the relationships we already have, and that we are also making sure that we are talking to the right people. And we want to make sure that we stick long in their memory for all the right reasons. So as we go in and we talk to people, we want to be remembered in the best possible light, because we want people to come back to us and talk to us. And it sounds like a big ask, but it isn't, because it's actually what you do very naturally. You, in whatever way you do it, when you go into a networking event, a conference, will work the room in your own way. If you go in and just sit in the corner and get your laptop out, then I'm afraid you probably could have done that elsewhere. So what I'd like you to do is that proactive element, which is what we're going to try and tap into, and hopefully, therefore, that they come to you as well as you being able to find them. And so putting all of those bits together, this is going to form the basis of what we're going to look at. Down the bottom there, we've got the profile. Mine in this particular instance, apologies for that. I did put on a different shirt today just for once, though, which makes a change. However, what we want is to be obviously you. And you are the best person to show people why they should be employing you. To get them to your profile, though, is going to happen in lots of different ways. It might be, number one, there, that actually recruiters come and find you. But in order for them to be able to find you, we need to make sure that the tools they use, perhaps the search on LinkedIn, can find you and makes you visible to them. So our first challenge is actually, how do we create a profile which is going to draw the right sorts of people to you and give them the right messages so they think, ooh, looks interesting. Donovan, Andrew, gonna have to chat to them. Absolutely. So we want to make sure that it's going to work for you in that respect. Secondly, number two, of course, we want to use your network, because actually people around you want to help. But we need to try and leverage how LinkedIn could help you apply those. So we're going to have a look at that as well. Number three, well, that's great for people coming to find you, but as I think we know, big room, only a certain number of people are going to be able to find you. We also need to be proactively going out and finding them and getting ourselves in front of them. So we make sure that they know the skills, the experience, and actually the benefits that you would bring to their organization. Number four, of course, some of them will have put adverts up. Well, if we're going to go over and apply to that and advertise job, then okay, but how do we differentiate ourselves? So again, we'll have a quick look at that. And then the final one in there, number five, these are all good ways, but another good way is actually that people just can see you in action. And so maybe they've bumped into you and you're having a conversation with someone, or perhaps you're holding stage. Well, in each of these ways, we are able to get you across. So commenting on LinkedIn or posting on LinkedIn is a great way to get you visible, not necessarily going viral, but actually getting you out there. Because, of course, every comment and every post has a link back to your profile, which, of course, is where that information, that brochure sits. So what I'm going to try and do is actually work through each of these. See if we can get a profile to start with that, just tweak it a little bit, get it working for you, and then work through 2, 3, 4, and 5 to hopefully give you a holistic view of, I guess, how you could go about it. Okay, so there's our aim. I hope it set the scene a little bit. Saw one question come in. Is it being recorded? It is being recorded. And yes, I will be sending that out afterwards or making accessible to you. So yeah, please do. Okay. Number one then, if I may. I'm going to start at the beginning. There's a song about that somewhere, I know. First of all, we want to make sure that people can find you. So actually how you present yourself is really, really important. We want to make sure that we're not being coy, but equally that we are giving the right information to the right types of people. So when people come across you, your profile, if they don't know you already, what the assumptions they make, I guess, are going to be based on what they read. And that is, of course, what you are giving them. So they're going to make judgment calls. They're going to make decisions based on the information they find about you. And on LinkedIn, that is your profile. Your profile is you. So we need to try and make sure that we are giving them the information which is going to make them sit up and take notice. Just saying stuff that we did this, I did this. It's not going to be enough because other people will be hyping that up. And I think we know that from a sort of sales and marketing position. You go into a store, what one do you look at? Do you look at the best product? No, because you don't know what it is. You look at the one that is advertised most, the one that draws the eye. So one thing that we will need to do is not only get the right words in there, but also present them in a way that is going to sort of draw the attention and keep people there. Because if I gave you these two profiles, where did your eyes go? One on the right, one on the left. I'm guessing for most of you, it'll be the one on the right. Because there's color, there's imagery. We are drawn to it. Therefore, for you, I really will encourage you to apply those same principles. Can we get a banner in? Can we also use the featured area, which is that second section of things down there? Each of these are going to keep people on your profile and are going to enhance and increase their knowledge of you. And ideally, if we've done it right, why they should be talking to you rather than someone else. So we need to create content, but we also need to present it. And that second bit I mentioned, ultimately, it's going to be a person looking at your profile. They're going to make the decisions. So we need to tap into that. That's where the visual comes from. But in a lot of cases, they're going to be using a search engine to play with. In other words, you are going to be found because they have typed in a job title they're looking for, a skill set, or perhaps someone with a certain background. We need, therefore, to make sure that your profile allows you to be found. And so one of those aspects of which, again, we will touch on, if you do not have a current job in LinkedIn's terminology, in a lot of cases, you are going to be invisible. to the recruiters who are going out there because they are likely to put in, well, I'm looking for someone who's currently in that role and I'd like to bring them into my new role. Or we are looking for someone with a certain skill set and they start with a job title in that. If you don't have a current job title, then anytime they put something into their search field or that, you immediately disappear. So we need to play the system to make sure that we are making sure you are in the right place at the right time. Yeah, so we're going to try and work all of those elements together. How do we do that? I'm going to just set up myself on LinkedIn. Apologies. There we go. Apologies for extra pictures of me. There we go. So the first bit I'm really going to encourage is firstly the introduction card. The introduction card is the top bit of your profile. Yeah, it's the first thing that people see. If I go back to LinkedIn, what do you see if I go to my profile or if I went to your profiles? Well, this. And it sort of fills the page. There's a little bit of extra stuff, but actually that's where the sort of the first thing, it makes me decide whether I'm going to read on or not. And there's two or three things that actually come really to the fore here that's going to be important for yourselves. Firstly, it's the banner. Okay, so if I look at this, we have a very visual element, the banner. We also have a photo. And the third thing that we're going to look at is this. This is the headline field. This is your own personal tagline that follows you around LinkedIn. Each of these are going to be that first indication to someone looking at your profile whether they should bother to read on or not. And I know it sounds really harsh and I apologize, but actually, if they are looking at 20, 30, 100 profiles in a day, we need to grab their attention and keep them on yours. With the banner, for example, again, I give you two profiles like that. Which one is going to get more attention? Which one is going to get more eyeballs and people are going to stay on there? I'm guessing probably it's going to be the bottom one. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is present something which I suppose like a shop window encourages them to come and look at yours. A banner is really important. Something that's good for you is always nice. I also encourage that perhaps there's a little bit of text on there. Doesn't affect the search engines, but actually having something which starts to focus people's mind on the elements, the skills that you want to bring is really good. So if I did that with the banner, well, the top one for me is no. That's like 80% of people on LinkedIn. Next one down, well, there's something there. That's great. Gives a little bit of focus, but it doesn't necessarily enhance my knowledge of you. And I want to know, am I going to waste my time looking further down your profile? The others start to develop that. Keywords. Yeah, can do that if you like. Someone who's branded themselves a little bit, which is quite nice. David kept it relatively sort of basic, I'm going to suggest. Nice photo, but has started the focus of this is what I do. This is why you are going to want to talk to me. And the one down the bottom, actually sort of, I suppose, professionally made, but they've got someone where it's a little bit more on the personal branding side. My encouragement to you, if you haven't already, is please do have a banner. Work it to your benefit. And if you can highlight some of the jobs, some of the skill sets that you bring, then for me, that is a great way to do it. If you can have an image which also reflects something that you like, then even better. It could even be a conversation starter. Treat it as your own personal shop front and work the passing traffic. Yeah. Dimensions are at the top. LinkedIn doesn't play well with sizes, so try and make it the right size. I hope a lot of you will be familiar with Canva. This is a good place that we can actually put that in there. In other words, Canva will allow you to bring in an image. It will make it the right size because they've got templated ones, and it allows you to put text over the top. So play with it if you'd like, because actually it works really nicely. But please, please, please. It sounds crass almost because it's a visual, and does it make any difference? It really does. Okay, it draws people in. Second thing I'm going to highlight is the headline. Again, might be something you've heard a lot of talk about. This is the little bit of text under your name. So again, back to my profile very briefly. It is this bit of text that sits here. It doesn't just sit there though. This is the bit that actually appears next to your name or under your name when you appear in the search. It also is the bit that sits next to your name when you comment or when you post about things on LinkedIn or when you look at someone's profile or when you ask them to connect. In other words, it's one of the sort of triumvirate photo, name, and headline field that follows you around the site. It represents you. I'm going to encourage that you think of it almost like your 3-second elevator pitch, your tagline, and actually use it to display what it is that you can offer. Is there anything wrong with saying looking for a new role? No, not really. But that doesn't tell me anything about what I should be looking for from you or why I should care. So what I'd encourage instead is that you lead with perhaps the job title that you would like or the one that you are best suited to. Perhaps throw a couple of sort of key skills in there, things which start to differentiate you. And the third bit I like to have in there occasionally, and again, you'll get many different opinions on this, is how you make a difference. I personally don't like just keyword after keyword after keyword. I don't think it guides the reader. They work a bit from the search, but I would like to think we are now talking to the person who has spent time looking at your profile. So I've put a couple of examples up here. One at the bottom is the sort of format that I think works quite nicely, which leads with, here's how I'd like you to perceive me from a job perspective. Here's some of the key bits that I bring, which augments that. And by the way, here's how I would make a difference to your organization. Here is something that actually just sets me apart from the other people out there. And if we can start to work that in a way that's comfortable for you, I would suggest that that starts again just to build it up. And of course, the keywords and this area appeals to the search engines too. Not independently, but in conjunction with all the other things going on. So have a play with the bits that we've got in there. Work it to your benefit. And I did throw in here the audio headline. I don't know if you've seen on people's profiles, this little symbol here, the little sort of loudspeaker type thing. You can put a 10-second hello if you like. It's designed so you could say how to pronounce your name. Well, hopefully Mark White, you're not going to go too far wrong on. Fade into the background, I know. But yeah, so actually just doing that might be another way just to get that voice in their head if they do actually listen to it. If you do want to do that, by the way, I'm going to wave my phone at you. You have to go to the mobile device and it's in there in the top part of your profile under name pronunciation, as I recall. So just go in there, press the button, you can do a 10-second recording. It's quite nice. It's an extra. A little bit, but it's an extra. So have a play, work this up. These are things that are actually going to support you and hopefully draw people to you. The final thing, of course, is it's you, your photo. If you haven't got a photo, and I know most people do have nowadays, which is good, then please do have one. I recognize in the UK, certainly, CVs don't have photos. LinkedIn, it's just a bit weird if you don't somehow. It's you walking into that big room with a paper bag on your head. Yeah, a bit weird. How you come across, though, well, I would encourage sort of head and shoulders, because I think that's a much easier one to be able to spot. Gentleman here, and I've worked with him and he refuses to change his photo, and that's fine, that's up to him. But I don't think A, distance, and B, holiday snaps are going to be good. I'd love you to present the image that you want people to remember. And for me, that's often, if I had to go to an interview, that's how I'd turn up. Shirt and tie for a gentleman? No, not necessarily. In fact, possibly not anymore. Used to be. But it's just how you want to be perceived. Yeah, so again, put a photo up that's right for you. Try and make it as good quality as you can, though. That sort of just adds a little bit to it. Yeah. The other thing that a lot of people sort of come in on the photo, of course, is, should I put the open to work banner up? For those of you who are unfamiliar with that, when you're at the top of your profile, We have something over here, the open to, as it were. Sorry, this open to help, by the way, is me messing about, so I do apologize for that. So that's actually built into the image. But for the rest of us, if we go to open to and then finding a new job, then we have the opportunity to put in, well, this is what I'm looking for. So we can highlight, here are jobs, here are roles that I'm interested in. And as you can read off the screen here, location, and should it be on site, and are you immediately available, and what sort are you looking for? Anything which adds to people's perception, I think, is good. What we then have is the final option, which is, and who do I want to make that aware of it? And there's two options. One is recruiters only, as they put it. Well, it's a bit of a misnomer. These are people who have bought LinkedIn's top level account. So 600 quid a month, called the recruiter, and they will be able to, and they're highlighting people who have activated open to work. Doesn't change your photo, and those things that you just put on there don't appear. If, on the other hand, we put all LinkedIn members, and let's say I save that, let's put in trainer just for the hell of it. There we go. Excuse my language. Physical trainer, I don't think so. Let's do corporate trainer. So if I did that, then what happens is the open to work box appears on my profile, open to anyone, as in anyone can see it, and LinkedIn applies this open to work banner. You're going to get different opinions on this. Some people say it looks desperate. I sort of throw at them, please grow up. This is just another way of getting you out there. So my encouragement probably is whatever's right for you, but I actually think it's a good thing. Because I think anything which helps people understand that, got a load of brilliant skills, loads of expertise, and by the way, your luck is in, I'm available. What more could they ask? So actually, for me, I do encourage that you put it on there. But again, has to be comfortable for you. That's the key bit. Yeah. What I will suggest, however, though, is if you do, and if you are in this position for perhaps more than 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever it may be, do occasionally turn it off and turn it on again. In other words, go into the about, delete, etc. It'll keep all of the elements to it. Turn it off. Opinions differ, but I tend to leave it off for about 6 hours, and then turn it back on again. It seems to put you back at the top of the pile for some of the corporate recruiters when they look at it. So any little bits that we can sort of add to it, I think is a good thing to play with. So again, up to you how you go about this, but different things I think are worth playing with. Do get the visuals in there. Make sure that when they see your introduction, they want to see more. And what happens when they do see more? Well, we're into the about section, in which case this is you putting your case across. They may go straight to the work experience. That I would suggest is good to come from your CV. Yeah, same sort of elements in there. The about section, on the other hand, for me is a key place, I guess, because you have your opportunity to put you across. Sorry about it. It's really text heavy on this one. I do apologize. I will send them over afterwards as well. This is your chance to get their attention and to engage with them. So I'm going to suggest here you don't just simply do corporate speak, or you don't make it bland. Instead, talk about you. Talk about forward, by the way. In other words, I don't want you to focus on what's happened before. They can see that from the work experience further down. That's the CV bit, if you like. I'd like this to be very much forward-looking. Talk about you. Talk about what you're looking for, what you can offer. Highlight, perhaps, proof of that from what you've done previously. Maybe put some figures in there. People do like specifics. But above all, give them something that actually gives a flavour of you. Loads that I see, and loads I'm sure you have read as well, really is very, it's quite sort of a bit grey. Grey's good in the right way. But here I would like you to present you in a way that they are going to remember. And if you can tell a little bit of a story, I think that's quite nice as well. What are you offering? What do you want? Where would you like to be? And I recognize that is so we don't want to put people out of the mix at all, but add a bit of personality if you can as well. It's a difficult one, I recognize, but try and think just slightly outside. If you're going to read the same thing time and time again, would you pay attention? Or what would grab your attention and keep you reading and say, I need to talk to this person? That's what I'd love to have here. Your chance to draw people to you. From a functional perspective, you'll also notice in the About section, you can add in, excuse me, that LinkedIn only shows the first 4 lines. So try and make sure that that's a sort of hook. Yeah, give me something that's going to make me want to click on the see more button and read on. Doesn't have to be big sort of, Sun or Daily Star headline type things, but something which makes me go, oh, okay, let's see what else he's got to say, what she's got to say. Yeah, so try and use the first 4 lines as that hook, that headline. Equally, you may notice that LinkedIn now puts an inordinate amount of space for the top skills. Please do add those in as well. So when you go into your edit, right at the bottom, you'll find skills. Put the ones that are relevant to what you want to highlight. You might be really brilliant at Microsoft Word. Please, that's not a top skill. Okay. Add something else in there if you could. So building your profile is building a picture of you. It's a brochure. It's a color brochure selling you. So I would love that we actually have something which is going to work. And equally, of course, just like we talked about the banner at the top, the About section, yeah, if you present it like this, I'm afraid it's going to it's difficult to read. Instead, spread it out. Give them some white space. Allow them to skim read it so they can come back and revisit the bits that they're interested in. This, I assure you, will get much more of it read. They'll still skim read it. And they'll probably read the first line down to about 11 there, and then their eyes will go straight to the bullet points. If they still like what they're seeing, because we've presented it in the right way, they'll rejig back here and they'll read it properly. Allow them to do so. Yeah, it really does work properly. So have a think about how that could work for you. And one little sort of tip here. If I just go into my About section and I just copy all the texts in there, one thing you might care to try is if you go to a word cloud generator, I'm sure you're familiar with what I mean by word clouds, but it's, the words that the more times a word appears, then what has that done? Thank you. Right, let's try if I see if the one I usually use is in here. No, of course it isn't, because that would be really too easy today, wouldn't it? But if you take any of the word cloud generators, let's take that one, see what's in there. Okay. And what we would then do is we would paste in the words. This is why I would use the one that I usually have in here. Okay. Backtrack one more time. Come on, Mark. I think it was called Jason something or other that I tend to. It's a really basic one, which is why I like it. There we go. Thank you for that. So if you go in and you simply paste in your About section and then run it, as I said, you'll be aware that what it does, of course, is the more time a word is used, then the bigger the word is on the page. If the words that you would like people to remember are not big and bold here in the word count generator, I'm going to suggest that you probably want to rejig bits of your About section. Because actually, we want to highlight certain key elements, and hence mentioning those multiple times without sort of keyword stuffing, of course, is actually really good because it does stick. So have a play, see what comes up with yours. Can I also suggest, by the way, that when you do look at, say, a job description or a job advert, do the same. Copy all of the text in that job description and put it into, and there are special tools for this, but I use the free one if you like with the word cloud. Put it in here and see which words they've used. Because if they've used a word lots of times and hence it's in big text, that's something that they are clearly very passionate or interested in. So let's see if we can mirror that in what we then go back with, either in terms of a letter or how we approach things. Yeah, so use it in a way that's quite nice, quite a nice sort of extra little bit there in terms of how you can apply it. Okay, so get us off there and back to the slides. Two more very quickly. I recognize spending a little bit of time on this, but it's so important because actually it works 24/7 for you. The third and final bit I'm going to highlight is the featured area. Featured area is your place and your opportunity to highlight, to feature, or pin if you want, stuff on your profile that you would like people to see. Perhaps stuff that doesn't necessarily fit ideally within either a CV or a sort of presentation sort of context, but actually is really important because it complements all of the stuff people take away. Now, if you haven't got a featured area, which a lot haven't, go to the top of your profile, add profile section, under recommended, add featured, and it gives you essentially a box and allows you then to put in there posts that you've made. So you want to highlight something that you've written, which of course adds to people's knowledge about you. Or maybe it's a link to, I don't know, a presentation you gave. Or maybe it goes to a website that talks about you or extra resources. Clearly public domain, so be a little bit careful with it. But nevertheless, it's a brilliant place for you to get your message across. And I would suggest that's a really good sort of way to actually up that implicit information that you're leaving with people, as well as the explicit stuff that you're putting directly on your profile. See how it could be used. It just enhances the you that you leave behind, and actually is really quite a powerful tool in that respect. So, profile. We've just brought them in. Introduction card. We've taken them into a bit more detail about you, the about section. We've highlighted stuff in the featured. Jobs, yeah, absolutely. Put them in there. Clearly, taking stuff from your CV is going to be good from the resume. You can, however, add to it. LinkedIn doesn't have that same sort of, it has to be in 2 pages. We can add. I will particularly suggest that if we are playing a little bit to the search engines, at the bottom of a job description, add in a few, extra skills, if you like, or extra things you'd like people to remember. We don't necessarily want the readers to see it, but we do want the search engines to see it and hence put us in front of people. So it's well worth doing. And if you don't have a current job, can I encourage you to put a false one in, if I can put it in those terms? Something which is not lying, but actually just takes you and introduces you. The job title you would like to have. And within the job description, then talk about, this is what I would like, this is what I'm best placed to do. This is what I could bring to this sort of role. We need to have it for the search engines. I'm not going to dwell too much on that here, but if you want a little bit of detail, just let me know afterwards and I'll put something together and explain in a bit more detail what I would encourage you to have in there. But it is important so that you get found, or else I'm afraid, as I said, if they've put a current job in as a search, you get passed over, and I don't want that. Final bit, add stuff to it. Skills, really, really important at the moment. Do make sure that your skills section is complete. When you see jobs, and actually sometimes they'll highlight the skills they want, so long as you've got them, of course, do add them in. Yeah, it's an area we can play with. You get 100 skills now. LinkedIn upped it from 50. The search engine takes a lot of notice of it currently, so do have them in there. Likewise, there's projects, there's achievements, there's recommendations, loads of good stuff. It's the top bit they're probably going to focus in on, but all this complementary information may help your case. So I hope there's some ideas. Yeah, it's a lot of, I know we spend a lot of time on there, but the profile is such a key part of the whole process that I thought it worthwhile doing it. Do think of your audience. Do make it forward looking. And do also, as I put in bullet point 4 here, make sure that you appeal to that second audience, which is the search engine. Yeah, because it works there as well. So, not all the sections are going to be that long, I promise you. We're not going to be here for days. However, an important one to make sure the profile's working for you. If we go on to the second bit, use your network. Please use your network. Tell people your situation. Tell people what you are looking for. They become other eyes and ears for you. And that's really good in the real world. But also, of course, we can do that on LinkedIn, but we can make it just that little bit more specific. If I go onto LinkedIn now and, I want to sort of look through, well, actually, the people who know me, the people you're connected to. If we go to my network, and over here on the left-hand side, then you go to my connections or connections. Here's a list of them. And we could search by name, but what we can also do here is we can search by filters. So what I'm thinking of is, well, here's a list of people that you know. Well, actually, do any of them, for example, I don't know, work in a company that you have an interest in? Do they work for, I don't know, Deloitte or whatever? In which case, let's filter those. So here are people that you know who happen to work in an organization that might be of interest. Or if it's not an organization, then perhaps they are in a job that is of interest. Do you know lots of finance directors? I spelled finance director right. Of course I haven't. There we go. In which case, maybe these would be people that would be really good to get back in touch with. And you will, of course, layer over how well you know them. But do use your network. You have a way on LinkedIn to go take that address book, that Rolodex, and actually pick out the ones who would be most relevant, either because of the company they work for, the location they're in, or the job they've got. Allow them to work for you. And that's at a general level. If you want to be a bit more specific, then actually go into someone's profile and see whether they know relevant people for you that they could introduce you. So if I went to, I don't know, a lady called Candy, works for the FSB. So if I went to her profile, she knows loads of people. I know her fairly well. So here, what I can do is I can go to her profile. There's her connection list. So here now is a list of people that she knows. Well, let's say I'm interested in actually, could she introduce me to people in the Norwich area, perhaps who are involved in sales? So let's go for a sales one. So let's go to job title and let's say, could you introduce me to any salespeople or sales directors? Well, as it happens, yes, she could. So immediately now I have the opportunity to leverage a relationship that I have to get me in front of someone that I would like to talk to. And you could do the same, either location based if you like. Sales is obviously a little bit of a dirty word. There we go. So marketing, I don't know if that's any better or not really. But she knows a few more of those. So now I can ask her for an introduction. Could I use the system? Could do. But actually picking up the phone and saying, look, couldn't help but notice that you know Gemma, who runs the whole sort of retail sector in Norwich. Would it be possible to have a recommendation, or can I mention your name when I get in touch? It allows and facilitates you getting in front of the right people and allows the conversation that you want to start. Still up to you. I think we all know that. But nevertheless, it allows that first element to happen. So I would really encourage you to use your network and also allow LinkedIn to help you find the right people within it. Yeah, so using it generally, using it very specifically as we've done here, and perhaps you could also use it with a company. And what I mean by that is, sorry, back to LinkedIn again, if I went in and I did a search and I said, I'm interested in companies, but I'd very much like to work in, I don't know, the IT, so tech, information and internet. Okay, brilliant. Well, we've got 3 million of those. I'm interested particularly in, well, let's keep it to the UK. Let's keep it nice and wide. Lovely. And I don't want the really big ones. I'd like perhaps 11 to 200. So we've got a database here of lots and lots of organizations. Some you'll know and some you will directly approach anyway. This is all very nice, but if we just go to the extra filters, because of course we're looking at your network here, then one of the filters hidden at the bottom are connections. So now out of those, only show me ones where I know someone. In other words, I can now leverage my relationship at an organization that seems to fit the ones that I'd sort of be interested in, but now I can at least just drop them a line and talk to them. Does it mean there's going to be opportunity? No. But we have an in and we have someone with inside knowledge that you can tap into. And it allows a process to happen, which means it facilitates and helps you, I suppose, make yourself as visible and get to the first stage as quickly as possible. And each of those, I think, works really nicely. Gives you just a chance to start that next process if you can. So in terms of working your network just a little bit, first of all, please do tell people. IRL, I believe that's down with the kids in real life as to the situation. But when it comes to LinkedIn, apply that, check your first connections, filter them by characteristics that are going to be right for you, because obviously you know lots of people. Let's focus in on the ones that in that big room you're really interested in and do work it. Make a personal message. Let them know your situation. Let them help because they will want to. But we've got to ask because otherwise they won't know. So second one, network for me, really useful. Working the system. Third, and this for me is sort of really quite key, is that proactive getting you in front of people. Being visible to the right people is great. But if we rely on them finding you, then leaving it a bit to chance. If you, however, can go out and be proactively visible to the types of people and the types of organizations that could be of interest to you, you are sort of starting the ball rolling. You are, I suppose, proactively going out there. Now, I'm not saying you're not. I'm saying that each of these are differing ways that we can work the system. So I'm going to suggest that actually there's lots of types of people out there who could help. And just extending your network or using that network, I hope will be beneficial. And the types of people I'm thinking of here as well, yes, we've got recruiters. Yeah, agency recruiters, absolutely. But there's also heads of department, the type of head that you want. Or if you are a head of department level, then of course CEOs. There's also the hiring managers, or there's the HR, the talent team. There's past colleagues who actually maybe they've gone on somewhere and actually they could introduce you. There's people you studied with. There's people actually who are part of, the mentors you've worked with. There's family. These are all people actually that it would be really good to make aware. I'm going to concentrate on the left-hand column here, if I may. And actually, LinkedIn can help us, unsurprisingly. So actually, for me, one of the things I'll encourage is working the system to your benefit again. Now, the search for me, again, I know I sort of bang on about this a lot, but I don't tend to encourage people to put anything in the search box unless they're looking for someone by name. What I encourage instead, so we get best use from the search, is to click into the search and just press enter. So do a blank search. When we do that, LinkedIn then indicates there's actually 10 different areas of LinkedIn that we can search through. In this instance, we're looking for people. So we tell people, sorry, let's try that again. We tell LinkedIn that we're looking for people. We press on the people button. In doing so now, LinkedIn gives us a load of filters to how we can work and find the right people that we might be interested in. And actually what we want is perhaps, to be in front of key people of a certain type. So for example, because what have we got? We've got 1.1 billion now to look through. So let's imagine that we want to focus in on recruiters, internal recruiters. So what are they going to cut? Well, job titles will tend to be talent or perhaps recruitment. Could be HR, but let's leave it at those two for starters. Let's leave those to start. You will clearly develop these out if you wish. In an ideal world, what I'd like is I'd love to have them as the head of department. So let's put that in there as well. Could have directors. So we've now got 67,000 people. So all we've done is basically said, I'd like to see the word talent or capital letters because we need it to be this or recruitment. So we're now working that. So we're seeing head of people. That's the other one. We probably put people in there as well. There you go. Put that in there as well. So that's different ways to express that. So I've got a few more in there. So we put that in there. We've now got people who are there. Now, where do I want to work? What sort of companies? Well, let's imagine that actually Birmingham would be a really nice place. Well, it is a really nice place. Don't have to imagine it. It's a fabulous place. Anyone from Birmingham? Okay, Dave. Really nice place, obviously. Thank you for that. So now I've got 206 people. It may be actually I want to focus in on specific companies, in which case I could start that process as well. Or it might be, if I go to all filters again, that I would like to use it for a certain industry. So I'm very keen on going into, I don't know, automotive. Oh, but they changed that. They've changed that to cars now, haven't they? No, vehicles. Yeah, motor vehicle. Okay, just the one there. I'm going to take Birmingham out of it, not because I don't like Birmingham, but just to give us a wider bit. So there we have 707 people who head up the recruitment and the people departments and who work for an organisation in motor vehicles. And let's put that into the UK, so at least we're not looking too far. That's obviously going to bring the numbers down somewhat. 95. These, if we are interested in working in that industry, are probably going to be really good people to make known that we're out there and looking, so that they have your CV probably, but they also have knowledge. They know you. They've got that mental picture of you because you've spoken perhaps. So what we're doing here is identifying people that even if they haven't got something now, you're setting up a situation where they can come to you. There was a survey done. 73, I think, was percent of internal recruiters said that one of their core places was actually internal recommendations. So actually they took recommendations from people working there. Okay, it's not quite what we're doing, though again, we can work that out if you want. But what it does show is that actually, rather than just putting it out there to the marketplace, what they'd love to do is actually have recommendations, people that they already know. This is putting you in the mix. What would we do? We'd ask them to connect. Would I say, hi, looking for a job? Have you got any? No, I wouldn't. I would introduce myself as an expert or as someone who has a skill set and would just ask for a little bit of their time, or perhaps just inquire as to, is the company expanding? What are you doing? Even if they're not, they may be talking to other organizations because, of course, they mix in the same circles who are. In which case, we are now in the mix. We have another person who could introduce us. I really, really would encourage you to use and spread your network in this way. Build up that pool of people who know about you, who know how good you are and know your background, who wouldn't have been able to find you otherwise because of how they recruit or whatever it is. Make sure that they are aware by getting in front of, hopefully sending a CV as well, but more to the point, if you can, talking to them, making them personally aware of you as an individual. And I would suggest that that is a really powerful way to go about it. Making sure that we use the search to get you in front of the right people. And there we did it very specifically with who's in the right job, in the right industry. You can also do the same with posts. We can search through all the posts that are made, listen to conversations. A company says they're expanding, or there's someone, all good things to put in there. Or groups. Make sure you're mixing with the right sets of people, again, because they may be sharing information. Or even events. I do like events. Events is a really nice one because it's implicit. So if I go to my search, do my blank search again, go to events this time. Now I need to find the right event, obviously. I don't know, let's say rugby, just for the hell of it today. Bermuda. Well, that sounds like fun. We'll go with that. So here is an event. People who are going to this event are ones I'd like to get involved with. So click on that. Okay, want me to sign up somewhere else? That's not what I'm going here for. What it does tell me, however, is that there are 58 people who clearly are going to be the right sorts of people for me. So I'm going to say I'm going to attend. If I say I'm going to attend, and obviously you'd find an event that was right for you, LinkedIn rather kindly gives us the delegate list. So now you have a list of people who have an interest in this same topic. These are clearly going to be good people to make sure that you are interacting with. And LinkedIn, of course, has now put us back to people search, allowing us filters. You can now find the right ones for you. The focus and the opportunity here to mix in that networking sense, but with a focus in mind, is awesome, in my opinion, though I am biased. Have a play, work the search to your benefit. Use the channels that you can find to identify whether it's internal or recruitment agencies. Let's be honest, finding ones that could be valuable or useful to you. And if you want to use it from a pure company perspective, don't forget that we can do the company search, which we played with a little bit before. But also, once you've got a company in mind, let's take Adobe as an example, if I may. If I went to Adobe's page, there we go. And actually it's one that I have a really sort of vested interest in, perhaps. Well, okay, follow it. Start to get them sending you information. Equally, go to posts, see what they are talking about. It's a great research station for you. See what's happening, see if it's something that can apply to you. I'd also go to the employees. Do you know anyone who works there? Well, there's the button to find out. Here it will now tell me anyone I'm connected to who happens to work there. Maybe, as another option, does anyone work here that I used to work with? So let's imagine, I don't know, I used to work at Aviva. Let's try that again. That's not where I wanted to go. Wrong one. All filters is where I wanted. Down here, I can say, well, actually, past company. So is there anyone who works at Adobe who used to work at Aviva? Imagining that I used to work at Aviva. Well, yeah, there's 13 people. Can I leverage that in order to get in front of people? There are lots of ways to help you get an in an organization, or at least to get the inside story as to who to talk to. And I would suggest that that's quite a good one. I also think that actually alumni, it opens some doors if you haven't got other ones. Connections, of course, for me is the best one because, of course, they know you. So in each of these cases, lots of good stuff to keep aware. And the other one I'll throw in here is if I go back to Adobe's page, see if I go back to Adobe, there we go. Thank you. Don't forget that when you go to their page, there's often going to be a jobs page. So that's great. Go to there. If there's things of interest, then put in the job title you're interested in and create a job alert. It'll ask for the type of job title you're interested in. Brilliant. LinkedIn will then tell you anytime that they advertise for a new role. So that's a good place to go. For the bigger organizations, you will find there is a life tab. They have to pay for this, so they tend to use it. But it will give additional information about what they're posting about, company spotlights, etc., etc., etc. So that's a good place to check out as well because it's augmented information. And the one that's more recent from LinkedIn's perspective, if you go to About and then scroll down, a lot of them will have activated this, which is, are you interested in working with us? Are you looking for a job with us? In which case I could say I'm interested. They will get a notification and you essentially are now on their radar. So there's lots of different ways that the system can help put you in front of it. I like the one where you take control, I'll be honest. That for me is my preference. But there's lots of good stuff in there that allows you, without being on the system every day, all day, to do the same thing. Not all organizations will have activated all of those things, but a lot will. So for me, takeaway for that third section is make a list of companies or industries if you want, and do a bit of research. Get yourself in front of the relevant people. Department heads for me and hiring managers or talent are going to be the obvious ones. It takes a little bit of time, but you are spreading in that big room lots of little leaflets around, pointing at you. And for me, that gives you much greater chance of actually getting in front of the right ones to then make contact and then just be you. Yeah. Talk to them. Comment on their posts as well if you want, by the way. Find out what they're posting. That's another great way of getting visible. Okay, with three down, two to go, and they're relatively short ones, so I recognize I'm over my hour. Hopefully, there's a couple of extra bits in here that'll be useful for you. The advertised jobs. Mm, bit of a dirty one on this in many respects in terms of LinkedIn, because actually a lot of people sort of apply for stuff and just don't get any response. Um, the jobs board is useful, but it is just a board. It's just a place. A lot of people do put stuff on there, but LinkedIn, I think, is still trying to find its way, which is surprising after all these years. The jobs area, however, can be useful. If you go into your jobs area up here, LinkedIn does try and help just a little bit. So there's different bits it puts in there, recent job searches you've done. It tries to indicate places and searches you've done. I'm just going to point you over to the left-hand side here where it's got preferences and my jobs and indeed my career insights. Preferences allows you to look at your job alerts. It also allows you to upload certain elements. AI power resume drafts I'm not keen on, but there we go. But what it does allow you to put in multiple resumes if you are going to apply online. You get a little bit more control, which is the key bit from my perspective. The My Jobs, again, anything you've applied for, well, it allows you and shows you the progress. I also like the bit they keep moving this around, but there's actually a few bits and pieces. Now, you'll have lots of people advising you on these things as well, but this is another place where you can get information about how do you deal with the questions, what sort of information. So they've put a number of things together here as well. It's worth checking out. So playing it out is good. However, the key bit, I guess, from my perspective, is if you do find a job, there's going to be a big apply button or an easy apply button. If you just press it, you're in a conveyor belt or play and then obviously do the things they ask you and submit things and all the rest of it. It's okay, but you'll probably have to go down that route. But can I beg of you, rather than just throw a CV, a two-dimensional you at a job, by all means do it, but also use what we just looked at in the previous section, in section 3, and seek out the person who is probably running the hiring process. They may show them. If you've got premium, they certainly will show them. If not, go in and look for the talent acquisition or the recruitment manager. Go at the top, unless there's only one, in which case, fine. Send them a message or ask them to connect saying, look, saw your job, really interested, looking forward to applying, but I've got a couple of questions. And try to get their attention to, you've got to think up a question, okay, that you've got to ask them. But what we're doing is actually just taking you out of that conveyor belt of paper CVs and into a real life three-dimensional you, because we're setting yourself apart. Some companies will push back. They will still perhaps ask you to apply through their system. Probably, absolutely. But now at least you stand out. And I would encourage you to work that part of the system. I also, again, I haven't tried it myself, but a lot of people are sort of encouraging not to apply through LinkedIn necessarily, but actually going to their company website and applying there. Depends how they view their system, and I think that sort of works in different ways as well. But the bit for me is try to be you. Try to identify who it's talked to and get in touch with them. Make yourself 3D and not a two-page CV, for goodness sake, because actually there's so much more. Yeah, so I hope that sort of hit through, and I hope any recruiters on the call are not going to be too annoyed with me, but I still think it's the best way to do it. The other one I will throw in there is don't forget to bung their JD. bung their job description into a word cloud. Pick out the words, maybe even add those as skills if you've got them, because we're basically mirroring. Yeah. So we're trying to give them the bits that they're looking for. So there we go. One, two, three, four. Last but not least, we've got the people seeing you by your activity. And it can be the most time consuming, also be a little bit sort of, well, I suppose it can be a little bit frustrating. Not everyone is an author, not everyone wants to post, and you shouldn't be forced into it. However, my encouragement, I guess, is step one, take an idea of commenting. Yeah, use the posts search. So if we do the search, I've taken you in there a couple of times, but if I go to search one last time, blank search, this time looking for posts. Here, LinkedIn gives you all of the posts that people make on LinkedIn, as opposed to the home page, which of course gives you what LinkedIn thinks you want. Find a topic that's of interest or your area of expertise and search out posts on that. Or all filters, search for people who work at a company that you have an interest in and go and comment on their stuff. So if we go back to the joys of Adobe, then here, this would give me only posts made by people who work at Adobe. And I'll make those the latest at the top. Thank you very much. And it allows you, if you wish, to start to identify the post that could be of use. And if you are then able to comment, you start to raise your profile. And it's a great way to get in front of people. They're looking for your interaction. You're giving it to them. You then follow up with a connection request. You're starting the conversation, which can lead to a relationship, which could perhaps lead to a role. So have that as your sort of baseline, if you like. If you want to post your own stuff, then brilliant. But it's not everyone's cup of tea. If you're going to, though, don't forget there's lots of different formats. You could do a talking head video. You could do an image based with some text. You could do a poll. Polls are quite good because they get a fair number of impressions, but make it quite sort of broad. But get yourself out there, because actually in each of these cases, what we are trying to do is get you visible and in front of the people who would be of interest to you. Does it have to be business stuff? No, not really. Could be all sorts of things. The personal stuff, as we talked about right at the start, tends to be that little bit more attractive to people because we can sort of buy into it more than perhaps business ones. One that I really like is the top one I've put on there. Talk about an event you've attended, a networking event, or maybe you've gone to a business conference. Hey, you could even talk about this. It's an event you've attended, and yeah, we learned something. I hope I learned something. Bored stiff for an hour and a quarter. Sorry if you are. But it allows you to post about it. It allows you to post about what you are doing. And if you are at an event, then actually people and pictures of people gets eyeballs. But you can also talk about what you learned, who you talk to, and it allows you to highlight your situation. Others, milestones you've achieved. Tell people why you do, why you're good at it, what brought you into the industry. People love the backstory. 5 things about yourself. You choose the level of intimacy you give them. It's lots of good things that would work. And there's some other suggestions there that you could build in. It doesn't have to be massively crafted. It's always good to, but actually something a little bit raw, dare I use the word authentic, is also good. Have a play with what might be right for you. And one final one I might suggest is actually expand on the topic. If you are finding it difficult to start, blank piece of paper, if you like, well, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world at the moment, as you may have noticed. So if I went to, let's take one site, let's take the BBC, you would take whatever site is relevant for you. I'm not expecting anything particularly useful here, but let's go for it. Okay, UK economy shrank. Okay, Brill, really great, thanks. My point being that it's a topic of today. So people have written about it. If I take the URL of this particular post, of this area, we have an opinion on it. So actually, if I now go back to LinkedIn and at the top of my homepage, I paste in that link. LinkedIn will basically pull the information across, allowing you now to give your opinion on it. Now, if it's a topic that you are expert in, then brilliant. You are giving an expert opinion. And that shows your knowledge, and it starts to, again, just raise that profile in front of people. If, on the other hand, you have just an opinion on it, then that's also good. I'm probably going to suggest staying clear of religion and politics at the moment. But it does allow a conversation to happen. And it's a blank piece. No, it started it, and you can then add to it. And that's quite a nice way to do it as well. The one that I had on the slide here, which was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So work from home, back in the office. Okay, a bit of a polemic one again, I guess. But nevertheless, it hit the news. And actually, I had 2 or 3 people who did exactly that. They took this story and they gave their opinion on it. And they got a fair bit of traction because it's a topic that everyone's got an opinion on. It's a nice way to get you just that little bit more visible to then, if you wish, turn it into, and by the way, here's the skill set I bring. So we can play it a little bit to our best effect as well. So some suggestions from that perspective: tell them what you're up to. Personal posts, I say, get really good ones. Article and news, just as the example I gave you. Even asking for help. That's really good. People want to help. People do share it, even if they can't help themselves. Asking questions is good because it gets people commenting, which the algorithm likes, so it spreads it a little bit further. And as I said, if you've been to a networking event, then talk about it. Reference the people who were there. Take some selfies if you know how to. I can't, so I'm not putting this on you. I just can't take selfies. Don't know what it is. Work it because it's visual and it's getting you visible, and you start the process. And from a sort of sales or marketing, and let's face it, that's what we are doing here, selling you, if you like, it's the awareness element that we can then bring down so that they have an interest and a knowledge about you and actually get in contact. So it's a great way to do all of those. So from that last point, the takeaway on number 5, being seen is good, because the more people who know about you, the more chance it is that they realize actually you'd be ideal for a position we're looking for. Commenting's good, but if you are going to post, then that just, you set the agenda. Yeah, so therefore it just allows that to happen. And more's the point, it just mixes it up just a bit. And the final point I put in there is people do love stories, and I don't just mean fiction. If you can weave something into a story a day and all the rest of it, and there was some examples and some suggestions in the slide there, that's brilliant, because people buy in a little bit, they feel it, and it inspires a reaction because they can identify with what you're telling them. So actually that's a really good way to play as well. So look, you've borne with me right to the end, so I appreciate that. The different opportunities I'm going to suggest are the ones I've sort of harked back to as we've gone through the session. There are lots of ways to run this. There's lots of ways, as I put it in that big room, to work the room. Your profile's key, but so are you and the people you have around you. And if you can build them into that process, tap into the networks and the relationships and the people that you've built up over the years, that is such a powerful tool for you. But equally, LinkedIn can help you find the right ones in there, and they can also find the ones who take it beyond that, the ones in the right positions in companies that you have an interest in, ones who can introduce you and leverage the relationships. Again, applying for jobs, again, try not to be sort of bland and just put a paper out there. Allow you to be you would be really good on number 4. And finally, that last one we touched on there, a little bit of visibility. Yeah, it's a little bit more sort of scattergun approach, but nevertheless, it is still another way to draw people to you, to your profile, and ultimately to get them on the phone and get you in front of them, which is the key bit here. I'm bringing all that together, I guess, I hope, is something that could be applied and you can take forward and, I guess, take you into the different directions you're looking for. And that brings me to the end of what I was sort of going to hopefully try and cover today. As I said, really appreciate you sort of sticking to the end.